Have you ever felt like your prayers were hitting the ceiling? Like you're asking God for help, direction, breakthrough, healing, but nothing seems to move? You keep praying, you keep believing, but deep inside, you still feel spiritually stuck. Maybe you've reached a point where your heart is saying, Lord, I need more of you. Not more distractions, not more noise, not another temporary solution, just Him. That's exactly why fasting matters. Fasting is one of the most powerful spiritual disciplines in the Bible, yet it's also one of the most misunderstood. Some people think fasting is about starving yourself to impress God. Others see it as an extreme practice only for spiritually mature Christians. But biblical fasting is much simpler and much deeper than that. Fasting is not about punishment, it's about surrender. It's choosing to pull away from the things feeding your flesh so your spirit can grow stronger. It's creating space for God in a world that constantly competes for your attention. And when you fast with the right heart, something begins to shift. Your mind becomes clearer. Your spirit becomes more sensitive. Your relationship with God becomes more personal and alive. Throughout Scripture, fasting was often connected to breakthrough moments. Before Jesus began his ministry, he fasted in the wilderness for 40 days. Before Esther approached the king to save her people, she called for a fast. The early church fasted before making important spiritual decisions. Again and again, fasting became a doorway into deeper dependence on God. But here's the important part. Fasting does not force God to move. It positions your heart to hear Him more clearly. Sometimes the biggest breakthrough isn't around you. It's inside you. And maybe that's why God allows seasons where nothing else works. Because sometimes prayer alone reveals the need, but fasting deepens the surrender. It quiets the endless distractions that keep us spiritually numb. It teaches us to hunger for God more than comfort, entertainment, or routine. That's why fasting can feel uncomfortable at first. Not just physically, but emotionally too. When the distractions disappear, hidden things begin to surface. Fear, anxiety, pride, anger, unforgiveness. God allows these things to rise not to condemn you, but to heal you. Fasting has a way of exposing what normal life keeps buried. And honestly, that's what many people are afraid of. We often want breakthrough without surrender. We want peace without letting go of the things draining us spiritually. But fasting invites us into a deeper place with God where transformation becomes possible. Now, before you think fasting means going without food for weeks, let's make this simple and practical. Biblical fasting can look different depending on the person and the season. Some people choose a complete fast for a short time, drinking only water while dedicating themselves to prayer. Others do a partial fast, like the Daniel fast, removing certain foods and focusing on simplicity. Some people start with a beginner-friendly fast by skipping one meal a day and using that time to seek God intentionally. And for some, the most important fast may not even involve food. Sometimes the thing stealing your attention is social media, endless scrolling, constant entertainment, noise that keeps your spirit distracted. A media fast can become just as powerful because fasting is ultimately about removing whatever competes for your focus on God. The purpose is not to suffer. The purpose is to reconnect. So how do you actually begin a fast the right way? The first step is preparing your heart before changing your habits. Don't rush into fasting just because you feel emotional or desperate. Start with prayer. Ask God sincerely, Lord, what are you trying to show me through this? Because the motive behind your fast matters more than the length of it. Some people fast to look spiritual. Others fast hoping to manipulate God into giving them what they want. But biblical fasting is not about performance. It's about relationship. You are not trying to earn God's love. You are responding to it. That changes everything. Once your heart is focused correctly, set a simple and clear goal for your fast. Don't just say, I'm going to fast. Be intentional. Maybe you're seeking clarity for a decision. Maybe you want freedom from a sinful habit. Maybe you feel spiritually dry and want to grow closer to God again. Specific prayers create focused surrender. For example, instead of saying, I want a breakthrough, pray something like, Lord, during this fast, help me trust you again, or, teach me to hear your voice more clearly. Then choose a type of fast that is realistic and sustainable for you. One of the biggest mistakes beginners make is starting too extreme. They see stories of long fasts in the Bible and immediately try to do the same thing without wisdom or preparation. But fasting is not a competition. God is not impressed by how miserable you become. He desires obedience, humility, and dependence. Starting small is not weakness. It's wisdom. Maybe your first fast is skipping lunch for 2 days and using that hour to pray and read scripture. Maybe it's fasting from social media after 6 p.m. for a week so you can spend quiet time with God before bed. The goal is not perfection. The goal is consistency and connection. And this is important. Whenever you remove something during a fast, replace it with God. If you skip a meal but spend that time distracted on your phone, you're not really fasting spiritually. You're simply changing your schedule. Fasting becomes powerful when it creates room for prayer, worship, reflection, and scripture. That's where spiritual intimacy begins to grow. During your fast, you may notice moments where your mind feels quieter than usual. Scripture may suddenly feel more personal. Conviction may become stronger. You may even become more aware of unhealthy habits, negative thinking, or emotional wounds that you normally ignore. Don't run from that. Sometimes God reveals what's inside us because He wants to heal what's been controlling us for years. And yes, there will probably be difficult moments too. You may feel hungry, tired, irritated, or emotionally sensitive. That's normal. Your body and mind are adjusting. But often, those uncomfortable moments reveal how dependent we've become on comfort itself. Fasting teaches us that our strength does not come from constant satisfaction. It comes from God. Jesus said in Matthew 4 verse 4, "Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God." That verse hits differently when you're fasting, because suddenly you realize how often we feed our bodies while starving our spirits. We consume content constantly, yet rarely slow down enough to sit quietly with God. We look for peace everywhere except the presence of the one who actually gives it. Fasting interrupts that cycle. It pulls you away from autopilot Christianity and brings you back to dependence. And one of the most beautiful things about fasting is that it reminds you how near God really is. Not because He was absent before, but because distractions were louder than His voice. As your fast continues, you may begin to notice something changing inside you. Not always instantly, not always dramatically, but quietly, deeply, something starts shifting. Your heart becomes softer, your thoughts become clearer, and things that once felt overwhelming begin to lose their grip on you. This is why fasting is so powerful. It weakens the flesh while strengthening the spirit. The cravings, distractions, and habits that usually control your attention slowly become quieter, and God's presence becomes easier to recognize. But here's something important many people misunderstand. Breakthrough does not always mean God immediately changes your situation. Sometimes the real breakthrough is that He changes you first. Sometimes the anxiety is still there, but now you have peace in the middle of it. Sometimes the battle hasn't disappeared, but your faith has become stronger than your fear. Sometimes the door hasn't opened yet, but your trust in God has deepened while you wait. That kind of transformation is powerful, because fasting is not magic, it's surrender. And surrender changes people. Isaiah 58 gives one of the clearest pictures of the kind of fasting God desires. Not empty religious performance, but a fast that produces humility, freedom, healing, and closeness with Him. God says, "Then your light will break forth like the dawn." In other words, something hidden begins to come alive again. That's exactly what many people experience during a genuine fast. They begin feeling spiritually awake again. Things that once felt distant suddenly feel personal. Prayer becomes more honest. Worship becomes more meaningful. Scripture becomes alive instead of routine. You stop simply knowing about God and start experiencing Him more deeply. And honestly, that's what your soul has been craving all along. Not more noise. Not more distraction. Not more temporary comfort. Just Him. Now, let's talk about a few mistakes you should avoid while fasting. First, don't make fasting about appearances. Jesus warned against fasting just to look spiritual in front of other people. Real fasting is deeply personal. It's about your relationship with God, not public attention or validation. Second, don't become discouraged if your fast feels imperfect. Some people quit immediately after making one mistake. They accidentally eat something, miss a prayer time, or struggle mentally, and then they feel like they failed completely. But remember, God is looking at your heart, not your performance. Growth with God is not built through perfection. It's built through persistence. Third, don't ignore wisdom and health. If you have medical conditions or health concerns, use wisdom and seek guidance before doing intense fasts. God is not asking you to harm yourself. Fasting should lead you closer to Him, not destroy your body. And finally, don't fast with empty expectations. Sometimes people fast hoping for instant miracles, instant answers, instant change. And yes, God absolutely can move powerfully. But fasting is not a transaction where you suffer for a few days and then automatically receive everything you asked for. The greatest reward of fasting is not getting something from God. It's becoming closer to Him. That's the breakthrough many people don't realize they actually need. Because when you grow closer to God, everything else begins to change too. Your priorities shift. Your thoughts shift. Your desires shift. Even your reactions begin to change. The peace of God starts replacing constant striving and inner chaos. And maybe that's exactly what your soul has been searching for. So if you've been feeling spiritually dry, emotionally exhausted, or desperate for breakthrough, maybe this is your invitation to slow down, surrender, and seek God in a deeper way. Start small. Start sincerely. But most importantly, just begin. Because every moment spent seeking God is never wasted. And when you fast with humility, faith, and genuine hunger for Him, don't be surprised if He meets you in ways you never expected. The breakthrough may not happen overnight, but your heart will never stay the same after truly drawing near to God.